Today's topic is playing beyond prejudice. And if you're just tuning in, the recent after the fact response to racial taunts during a Southern California high school basketball game, boys basketball game, has prompted me to look for answers. And when we went to break, I was wondering, that as bystanders, why do we freeze up and allow negative behavior like this to happen at sporting events? More so at sporting events than in other life events, outside of sports. Why do we judge later, but often do little or nothing during the game when the problem's happening? Well, I put on my psychology hat and realized that this is a great Psychology 101 moment. Again, if you have something to add to the conversation, today's topic, simply give a call into the studio. It's 877-8-830-830. That is 877-8-830-830. And Derek will take your call and get you in queue. So there is actually a model to explain how and when bystanders or onlookers are going to intervene and provide assistance to someone who is in need of help. The model is appropriately called, it's the model of bystander intervention. We get very fancy in the world of psychology. And it has 5 basic questions. Now, in this model, if at any point I'm reading off a question, if you answer no to the question, then you're not going to help. You're not going to intervene. And if, on the other hand, if you answer yes to all of the 5 questions I'm about to read, then that means that you're very likely to, help is on the way. You're going to be responding. So let's go through the 5 questions. I want you to keep track of how many yeses and how many nos that you have. All right, question number 1. Did you notice something unusual happening? Now, I know this may seem a little trivial. Did you notice it? But you can't assume that everyone around you is actually paying attention to the same behavior that you're seeing. All right. So, no guarantees. So the first question is, do you actually notice something? If you answer yes, you move on. If you answered no, that means you didn't see it. So obviously you're not going to respond. Okay. Question 2. Did you believe something was wrong and that help was needed? Did you believe that something was wrong and that help was needed? Now, at this point, you may be noticing a situation, but you may believe that the person or the group that's experiencing the situation that you're watching doesn't need your support. In fact, it may not register with you as an emergency or as something that's urgent. But if, on the other hand, you say yes, this is something that's bad, and that person needs support, you've now answered yes to 2 questions, and you move on to question 3. Question 3 in this bystander intervention model is, do you have a responsibility to help? So you ask yourself, on some level, do I have a responsibility to help? Now, this is where we lose many bystanders, many people that are around the situation, because you may have noticed and you may believe that something is wrong and that help is needed, but you might not feel that it's your job to provide the help. And we lose a lot of people here. They believe, in fact, most people believe as they're looking on, that it's someone else's responsibility to provide aid. So if you believe it's someone else's responsibility, you stay frozen. So this question and the answer to this question explains how it can happen that hundreds of people can be watching a crisis unfold with everyone waiting for someone else to step in and do something, because we're all thinking the same thing, that someone else is going to step up to the plate. So please be aware of this question being a critical moment where we lose many people considering offering aid to someone in need. But if you answered yes still, I have a responsibility, then you move on to question 4. Question 4, do you know how to help? Do you know how to help? Now, this question also stumps many people who might have said, yes, there is a problem. They might have said also to themselves, yeah, that person needs help. And they might have said, yes, I should help, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's appropriate. So you stay frozen. And especially when it comes to a hot button issue, a difficult issue like discrimination or racially driven behavior, people who are good people who want to help are oftentimes very worried that they're going to be misunderstood, that they're going to be persecuted, or that they're just going to simply add fuel to an already fiery, flaming situation. So they stay frozen. And it's not that they might not have positive intentions, but this is a critical question. Question 4 again was, do you know how to help? All right, but you might have still said yes to everything and said, you know what, I can say something, I can do something. And you get to question 5. Question 5 in the bystander model is, can I do this? Not just do I know what to do, but can I do it? And you might not act, even if you've gone through everything else I've just read, and you've answered yes all the way, but you get scared, maybe for your own safety. And maybe by the time you resolve this fear, the situation might even be over. Because, a crisis situation can be here and gone and moved on quickly. So these are the 5 questions of a bystander model that can help us to understand how it is that so many people stay frozen and don't intervene when a person obviously needs help or assistance or something's getting out of control. If you're just tuning into the Dr. Casey Show, today's topic is playing beyond prejudice. And after racial taunts during a high school boys basketball game in Southern California, the Southern California sporting community, we're moving forward. And I'm providing a conversation here about how to respond. What action? How do we learn from this? How do we move forward as a sporting community? And this Psychology 101 segment is about understanding the bystander model of how helping someone in need, how is it that we sit back and don't intervene? So this bystander model explains how such hurtful behavior is allowed to continue during a game or maybe even during a sports practice. So if you're wondering, well, you know what, Dr. Casey, this just doesn't apply. This doesn't apply to kids being kids in sports, and this is a part of sports. I've heard that comment quite a bit. So I have something I'd like us all to go through together, a little mental imagery exercise, if you will. I'd like you all to imagine that you are at a game. Pick any sport, pick a game. And in the interest of cheering or throwing off an opponent, the fans or members of the opposing team start racially taunting other players. And the jeering gets louder. I want you to imagine it now with me. You don't have to close your eyes. Just try to imagine it. Imagine this jeering spreads and gets loud. And imagine that no one responds. And the play simply just continues until the jeering is over and everyone moves on. All right, so you saw that. Now what I'd like you to do is take the sports, take the athletic uniforms out of the equation. I'd like you to imagine yourself at a high school. Pick any high school. First one that comes to mind is probably the one you attended. And imagine whatever the quad area, whatever the open area looked like. Imagine that it's lunchtime on a normal, typical day of school. And I'd like you to imagine a student walking through the middle of this quad area. And I'd like you to see other groups of students lining the walkway that this student is proceeding down. And I'd like you to imagine that the same jeers are happening in the middle of a day at school, in the middle of a quad. Just see the student walking on, and the jeers get loud, crescendo, and come to an end. And I'd like you to imagine that no one intervened. That one felt a little different, didn't it? It felt different to imagine a student being at a school where they're supposed to feel safe and protected, and they're supposed to be learning things and supposed to be developing as the young adult that they want to be. But I would ask you to feel the same about each scenario.